Welcome to Books, Dreams, and Financial Things, where we talk about marriage, blending our family, finances, and our dreams. We hope while sharing our journey, you can relate and learn with us and from us.
Okay, so the reality is we've been sort of kind of out of it as far as the family goes. Everybody has been sick, including myself. I have a headache today for sure. Last week I was probably the biggest baby of us all, and according to my wife, no, I was a baby, but I don't get sick much, so that's the circumstance with regards to that. But today we want to talk about opposite sex friends as far as friendship go, if you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or if you're married. And so we wanted to sort of kind of talk about this because this is a topic that we've heard and, chimed in on stuff. Friends and family have said it. We have some friends that do have those opposite sex friends, and we have some other friends who don't.
Right. And just, talking about what we feel about it, if we agree with it or not, and why, and all that.
Okay. So let's start from the beginning. What I want to do is start from the origin. The first time, as a kid, let me ask you a personal question. As a kid, did you have friends that were of the opposite sex?
Definitely. I had my best friend. His name was Josh. He was my next door neighbor. It was like four of us. I can't remember the fourth person's name. Sorry. But Caroline, which is my girl best friend, Josh, and then me and this other kid. Maybe they were just there. Maybe they weren't. Anyway, but yeah, he was my best friend. And it was just, we were little kids.
How old?
5, 6, 7 years old. And I would play with him just like I would play with Caroline. If Caroline wasn't available, I would go to his house. I would go inside. We would play cars, or sometimes I would try to get him to play like house with baby dolls. And he never would want to, but he was just my friend.
Okay. And see, so for me, it's a lot different. I think probably from some of my uncles, because I was raised by my grandmother, and then I had, the older people who were in my life was my older brother, but he was always in and out of jail, so I didn't really develop a relationship with him. But I had my older sister, and my cousin, and then my auntie. And so I was pretty much raised by women. But my uncles who would come around and stuff, from a very young age, I remember them asking, do you have a girlfriend? Do you have a girlfriend? So mentally, when I thought of an opposite sex, a girl, I didn't look at it like, oh, she could be my friend. I looked at it like, if I like her, then she could be my girlfriend. I think I had a girlfriend in the first grade. So that was the thought process with regards to how I thought of a kid. And so when you were younger, you actually had a guy friend. You guys, it sounds like, so did you do the guy playing games and so forth?
Yeah, he would try to get me to play like with his trucks, and I never would want to, but we were just regular, just friends.
Okay.
Or we would go outside and ride our bikes.
Okay, so that's something that you did do. Because I'm sitting here, I'm like, you trying to get him to play with dolls, and he said no. And then he would try and get you to play with trucks, and
we
you
would
said
play
no.
like together, but playing maybe our own thing. Like I would be
Right.
playing with my toys, whatever. But we would normally have other people there as well. But we would play outside and everything.
Okay, so
Or like in a tree house.
Yeah, treehouse,
Yeah.
all that. And it was never anything like, oh, he's cute, or
Oh, no.
never thought that
But
way.
I did, at that age, I definitely liked boys.
Okay.
Because there would be boys at school where I'd be like, oh, he's cute or whatever. So it wasn't like I didn't recognize or pay attention to the opposite sex like that. Just not with him. He was just really my friend.
I think the key thing here is the woman or girl at that time and a boy's aspect of stuff. Do you think that he thought you may have been cute, or someone in y'all group of girls that he thought was cute?
Oh, I don't know.
You
We never had
know.
those conversations.
Right, you
We
didn't
were
have those
little kids.
conversations, but now you look back, do you think, he might have liked me or anything like that?
No, I really
No?
think we were just friends. And I even see it with, our kids. Like they all talk about a friend at school and it'll
Right.
be a girl, and it's just normal.
Friends,
Just for, yeah.
Okay. And so, so obviously we were both raised differently in the way that we looked at stuff, but I don't think that there's necessarily a wrong or a right answer in this aspect. I remember probably around 5th or 6th grade, there was a girl, a friend of mine's, actually I had all the way up to high school. We're still friends on Facebook, named Karen, but she was like the boys. So when you look, and that's why I asked you with regards to like liking what it is. She played basketball with us. She played football with us. and she was looked at without
Like one of the
getting in
guys?
trouble. But yeah, she was looked at like one of the guys. And when we would talk about girls, she would talk about girls too. So
Oh.
she was interested in that.
Right.
And so that sort of kind of changed the dynamic. So we looked at her as one of the fellas.
Right. Yeah. I never had like a gay guy friend when I was little. You know, where it was like, oh, he was just into the girl stuff or
Right.
no. But I never had any guy friends after probably 3rd grade or whatever. Then it was like very much separate. Here are the girls, here are the boys. If we did come together, it was because, oh, that's my boyfriend, that's my girlfriend, you know.
Okay. And so, okay, so that makes sense. And you know what? Let me go back on what I said about Karen, because actually when we used to play basketball and stuff, I think there were some guys who actually looked at her differently. And she didn't start, like, we didn't know that she liked girls like we did probably until probably like the 8th grade, 7th to 8th grade. Because back in the 5th, 4th grade when we would play, the reality was, I remember initially we didn't, you know, it was like, you're a girl. What are you trying to come play basketball with us? We would always go to our old high school at Valencia Park and play on these hoops that were relatively shorter than 10 feet. One was like 6 feet. The other one was like 8 feet. So we could dunk on it. And it was cool. We feel like we were in the NBA. And I remember she wanted to play. And she couldn't. You know, at first, initially, we didn't think of it. But she had an older brother who was like, as far as sports goes, he was like so much more advanced than the rest of us. And he was probably like 2 years older than us. But he was just really good at football, really good at basketball. And I remember one time he was just like, let her play. And she played. And she was about as good as the rest of us. Mm-hmm. And so then from then on, it was like she was just part of the group. Yeah. But in your instance, that's what you're stating with regards to that. So, okay, that makes sense. So now fast forwarding. So there was a time when things were separate. You're saying from 3rd grade on. So at this time span, were there any guys that you ever knew that were friends with girls throughout your high school time span?
I'm sure there were, but it just seemed like if they were around, it was like I said, because they were dating them.
Okay.
Or, you know, one like the other. And I would have associates like with guys in my class because, you know, I was always in like those AP classes, so we would have to do a lot of work together.
Right.
And so, yeah, they were like kind of friends, but I wouldn't talk to them outside of class. I wouldn't hang out with them, you know, none of that.
Okay. That makes sense.
Did you have any friends, female friends?
Outside of Karen, no, that was it. It was Karen. Actually, when I went to Morris, it was me, Karen, and another friend. I can't remember his name, but I think he's like in another country now. But nevertheless, it was us three, and we would all hang out and do stuff, and it was, you know, never... Like, I didn't look at her like a girlfriend or anything. It was just like a friend, like a fella.
It wasn't until college, to be honest, that I even knew that was a thing where people could really just be platonic friends.
Why is that?
Well, at that point, that's when I was dating someone and his best friend was a girl. And I was like, what? Like, I had never, your best friend? I had never heard of that prior to that.
Okay.
And they really were just friends.
Friends, okay. And you, I mean, obviously in the beginning you had reservations, but you just had to trust it at the end of the day, right?
Right. I had no reason to, you know, not trust it, but I definitely thought it was weird. I'd always be like, you guys have never kissed. You never did anything. You never liked her. And he would always be like, no, they were just platonic friends.
Okay. Okay. And so in college, which is a time where a lot of sex happens, a lot of dating, a lot of partying, all that type of stuff happens. So how long did you date that guy?
For about 8 months. And then we did become friends too, but it wasn't like, you know, we had dated. So nobody I dated afterwards would be cool with him and I being friends because we had dated before. Okay.
So what you're saying is in general, if you met a guy and he already had a girl as a best friend at the time when you met him, then it's fine. But there's some rules between that girl as a best friend, correct?
Right. I mean, not rules, but the only way that I would really be comfortable personally is if it was always platonic.
Okay.
So there was never we were drunk and we kissed this one time, or, we were drunk and we slept together, or just this one time we, you know, slept together, or we dated for 3 weeks, but it didn't, no.
Okay. So absolutely out of the question. So do you think that if a guy and a girl actually slept together and maybe kissed, but just was like, it's not there, we're better as friends, you would be okay with that? No.
I don't believe so, no. But I think, I mean, sure, probably it could happen. I don't know. But I just don't trust that type of situation. I don't trust the guy. I don't trust the girl, because it went there once, it can go there again.
Okay. That makes sense. And so the reality is, like, for me, when I think about opposite sex friends, speaking on the guy's perspective, and obviously I'm only one guy, so there's a lot of guys out there who may think differently. But whenever I remember my friends who were guys who had girls who were friends, who were attractive. And they were like, oh yeah, I'm just their friend. And in my head, I knew, like, I would ask them, well, would you date her if she would date you? Yeah, I would. And so right then and there, it's like, well, you're only being her friend because that's what she's allowing to happen.
She put you in the friend zone, right?
Right, being put in the friend zone. But outside of that, reality is, I'm with you. I don't believe that can happen. Now, unless it was a situation where they grew up together and they were friends forever, or if that friend happens to like the same sex,
right,
that changes the whole dynamic with regards to it. And so then I wouldn't think anything of it. But, yeah, that's just the thought process.
I actually had someone who I thought was just my friend. I definitely wasn't attracted to them. We had never kissed or gone out. We would go, like, get lunch, pay separately, just hang out like one of the girls, right? But I remember telling him about somebody else, and he was like, I really don't like when you talk about other dudes. I'm like, why? He was like, because, I mean, I like you. I'm like, what? No, I definitely did not. So that's why I don't trust it. It's always somebody who, in the back of their head, they're like, oh, give them the opportunity, like you said.
Right.
I would date that person.
Right. Okay. So
after that, I was like, see, this is why you can't have no guy friends.
Huh.
Because it seems like it would be, like, in some ways, like, fun, right? Because I feel like sometimes, especially not so much now, but back then, girls came with, like, a lot. And I feel like guys, in high school and college, they were just easygoing and it's a good time, not that much drama. But then it's always that hidden agenda, I feel like.
So you're saying, like, in college, it was easier to be guy friends, but because of the mere fact that you knew probably deep down inside they wanted to be with you, or if given the opportunity, they would be with you, that's what made it a little different.
Right. I guess, yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, not that it was easier, but I'm just saying it seemed like intriguing. Not because I've never been. I'm a girl's girl. I love, I have girlfriends. I'm not one of those women who are like, oh, girls are this, that. I'm just saying it seemed like easygoing and intriguing for that, but I never didn't sit right with me. I'm like, I don't trust you.
Okay. Huh. Okay. So now we're fast forwarding to marriage. So, it's clear to say if you're not comfortable with your boyfriend having a girlfriend, then in marriage, similar situation, unless it was somebody that they had beforehand, or how do you feel about that? Does it change once you get married?
I think in marriage, it would be different. Like, let's say you had a really good friend from childhood. Let's say it was Karen, but she, didn't like women as well. She was just, just a friend. And I would be open if it was like, okay, now that's also my friend. Right. I think that it becomes kind of weird when you've had a female friend or I've had a male friend. And it's still very separate. But then our marriage, like I'm going to lunch with my guy friend or you're going to lunch with your girlfriend on your own or you guys are doing, it's like, no, we're now married.
Right.
So now that should be our friend.
Right.
So if you're still trying to keep it separate, to me, that's a red flag.
Okay. So regardless of the sex, if you... as far as the male or the female aspect of it. But if you have the opposite sex friend and you're married and you're doing stuff with that friend, not including your wife or your husband, then that's red flags.
I believe so.
Okay. I guess I could agree with that because the reality is, it's just like if I had a kid, when you marry me, you're marrying into me with my kid, and that means my friends, my family, and everybody. And so it should be that way. But as a whole, but you're saying that it's okay if I had a guy friend and we just hang out and don't include you.
Right, but you're still, like, even with your guy friends, I still am around them on occasion, not like every time you guys hang out, but they definitely know me. I know them. Like, I go around them. That's what I'm saying. Like,
okay, so it's not about necessarily hanging out with everyone.
No, but it is if it's a female, yes.
Why? How is that? I'm playing devil.
No, mind you, I don't know. I'm just talking like if you just all of a sudden had, which would not be okay. Like, let's say you didn't have a female friend and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is my friend. Right. No, what? No.
Okay. So
That's not
so
appropriate.
if I didn't have this opposite sex friend, there's no way that I can meet someone and we're just friends and
Right.
include them with everything.
Because why? I mean, to me, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know.
What about it doesn't make sense?
It just doesn't. I would never want to even be friends with somebody who's just like a married man. Like, all of a sudden, I never knew you and I just happened to meet you at some meeting or something. I'm like, oh, yeah, let's be friends. Why? Like, no, we can be acquaintances or maybe we have business to take care of, but there's never a reason to be sitting on the phone and chatting or going and getting drinks. Or it's just setting yourself up for just, I don't know, craziness.
Okay. So what if it's all business?
Yeah, if it's business, but I mean, still, there has to be boundaries. I think that once you're married, you definitely have to set very strong boundaries with everyone, but definitely someone of the opposite sex.
Right. See, I think that that's where the problem happens. If especially if you're married and you're having that opposite sex friend and there's no boundary set, right? Because if you just start talking, everybody's talking and whatnot, it happens that way. I always tell you, that's one of the things I say, you have to try and be an above reproach. You don't want to get caught up in a situation like that. Another thing that I always say is I remember when at one point I did want to be a pastor. And one of the things that they taught us is you're never in a room praying for nobody by yourself with the opposite sex. And a lot of those types of things just because of temptation and the things that can come about from that.
But right, yeah. I just think that's not appropriate. And you can give off the wrong impression too. I think that sometimes being married, if somebody tries to become a friend and you kind of let them in that way, they'll think that, oh, okay, there's a little bit of wiggle room, or I think it's just best to just not. And if you do, you know, like my girlfriends, I think that, yeah, you can be friendly with them, you know, like in a social setting, or maybe your guy friend that I don't know, like let's say like, well, I don't want to say his name, but your friend that lives up north. Like, of course, like in a social setting, we're all going to get along and be joking, and there would be no reason for me to like call him and go hang out, or you know.
Unless you're like trying to do a surprise party.
Well, right. Yeah, but yeah.
But yeah, I see what you're saying. Like having a full-on conversation constantly about whatever, you know, or whatever. Because I should be your best friend and vice versa as far as the opposite sex. Okay, so I wanted to read something though. Because one of the things I did was I looked online. And I wanted to look at, you know, what people thought. You know, is having opposite sex of a friend, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Mm-hmm. And it said compelling reasons to befriend someone of the opposite sex. The person can offer alternate viewpoints on various life situations that you might not receive from the same sex, offering a more diverse view of things. Befriending someone of the opposite sex teaches you to expand your ideas of who a good friend can be. So when you hear that, what does that make you think?
I actually agree with that. When I was dating that person who had the girl best friend, I felt like she was an asset to even our relationship, because she would be able to tell him, you know, good insight. That maybe, like, even if I would say it, it would come off different to when his best friend said it. So I felt like she would help, you know, in some ways. Like if we had an issue and he would go to her, she would give him good insight. Now that's what I'm saying, like all for platonic, lifelong, you know, childhood friendships. That to me would be fine, you know, because I think it's good to have that opposite sex insight that just a woman's not going to understand or a man's not going to understand.
Right. And that makes sense. Because I think if I remember correctly, I remember you had some friends. You had a friend that, you know, would ask questions about certain situations and stuff with regards to the female or the women he was dealing with. And he got great insight from you because obviously you're a woman. And there's stuff that you can teach or say with regards to a situation that if he goes to his guy friends, chances are it's going to be the same scenario. Okay, so that makes sense in that aspect. To make things clear, as long as this is a friend that was a friend before you came in the situation, and as long as this friend you haven't been had sexual contact with,
right? Just a platonic friend.
Okay, so that makes sense with regards to that. Okay, so as far as our marriage goes, I didn't have any girlfriends before I met you, and vice versa. Right. And so if Renita,
there's like associates. Like I have my birthday twin that I don't ever talk to.
Okay.
But like I knew him before you.
Right.
Married. and he's helped us like with our photographer, like
Right.
stuff like that. But we don't just sit up on the phone like
Talking.
chopping it
And
up.
he
People
likes
still
the
say
same
chopping
sex,
it up.
doesn't he? Or no?
No, the one who's married, my birthday
Oh,
twin.
no. Yeah, I don't even. I remember there was like a couple dudes for the most part.
Right.
But 90% of them like the same sex, so I never thought anything of it. But and that's just how guys think in general.
Right.
It's like, oh, if he's likes the same sex, then it's like, okay, he's not interested in my wife.
Right.
He don't even like females, so it's not a big
But
deal.
also, like, he was also married before we were even, dating. Like I said, I don't even think I have his phone number. It's always been kind of just Facebook.
Online,
Yeah.
right.
But never just like, hey, how are you doing? And
Right.
let's go to lunch.
Right.
No.
Yeah. So I don't have that kind of friend. She does, but he's married, and they don't even, like she said, she don't even communicate like that. My question to you guys, how many of you guys out there, I want you, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, put down in the comment section if you believe you can have an opposite sex friend and why. So I want you guys to put that down in the comment section, explain that. And I'm just curious to see what it is, because obviously I think more important than a one answer fits all, I think that is very, very key to understand the dynamic of your relationship with who you're with, and understand that, hey, some people may be okay with it and some people may not. And if they're not okay with it and you have that friend, then you have to make a decision. Make a decision on what it is that you want to do with regards to that. And that may not be the person you want to marry or
right. If that's like a really good friend, I don't know. That would be
tough
hard.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think, don't you have a friend who just recently got married but that has a girlfriend that's like his best friend?
Yeah, I believe so. And I think they go to
Right.
lunch and all the things.
Right. And but the wife, she dislikes it, but not because of a trust thing, right? Or does she
I
not
don't
get along with
really-
the person?
I'm not sure of the reasoning. I think it's also because it's new and they, didn't establish that beforehand. So that's another thing. If you don't establish something prior to getting married, once it presents itself, it's kind of like, I don't really know what to do, because you don't want to make a decision just out of like emotion.
Right.
But if it's like, there are situations a little bit different. We got to have them on the podcast
Right.
because they didn't have a lot of dating time. I don't think there was a lot of establishment with certain things. So I think that's the thing. It's kind of new, so they're trying to figure out how to navigate that.
Okay, that's cool. And you know what? I just thought of another topic that we could talk about, not necessarily next week or whatnot, but how long do you think you should date before you get married? And I think that varies.
Oh, they should be on that one.
That maybe. Hopefully, we could get them on that one.
Yeah.
That'd be perfect, because they were short. I mean, me and you. Well, no, it was some time. When you really break it down, it was some time before we actually got married.
Oh,
We
yeah,
dated
yeah.
For over
I think
a
that,
year.
it was normal.
Right.
But also, I mean, I don't know if this is backtracking too much, but or maybe we shouldn't talk about that. Never mind.
What?
Just like if you could be friends with like someone that you have dated.
Oh, I mean, that's a thing.
Because I hear a lot of people say even that, like, oh, well, yeah, we dated, but we just realized, we'd be better off as friends. I actually had one of my exes end up being a really good friend, but it was always a weird undertone, to be honest. And then once we got in serious relationships, didn't work out because of that undertone. I just feel like when
Right.
you date, there's always that little bit of like, even if you're not really trying to be flirty, you're going to be a little bit flirty, you're just not 100% appropriate.
I mean, I can speak on the guy's perspective, but I believe on the girls as well. That I believe that there are guys who look at girls and like, I'd rather be a friend. I don't want to go that route because it's going to mess up our friendship. But that girl may be thinking like, as soon as it happens, it'll happen. A matter of fact, I saw something on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram where sort of kind of vulgar, but just bear with me for the story, then we'll be done. But it was a girl and a guy, and they were obviously best friends, and he was playing a joke on her. And so basically they were like, okay, ask her to do something and see what'll transpire. Mm-hmm. So he's like, basically, to keep it PG-13, he was sexually frustrated, and he wanted, her to perform oral sex on him. But it was a joke. That was the whole joke part. She didn't know the camera was up. So he had the camera up and he said that to her. And she goes, what? Are you hurting or what's the problem? Oh, okay. Well, you're my, she even said, you're my guy. Would you like me to perform that for you? I'll do it. I don't care if that's what you want. And he was just like, what? You know, he didn't expect her to say that. And then the camera was on and she was like, oh, the camera's on. Oh, and she just walked out or whatever. And so that sort of kind of confirms it for me. But I do believe that maybe there could be two people who really don't feel each other that way. But a lot of the times, the reason why they don't is because they don't want to mess up whatever they have. But they still might have in the back of their head, you know, taking it that route. But as far as us and our household, we ain't going for it, right?
Right. So don't come up in here talking about that's my friend, because no.
Right. So we've been married for 5-6 years, been together for like 7 years.
Almost 9, sir. We've been married 5.5, together almost 9. It'll be 9 in March. Perfect.
Sorry about that. And but there was never no girlfriends for the most part. So there were no guy friends. At least that's what I thought until you brought up him, your birthday twin. I remember asking questions about him.
Right, always. Right. And then literally like going through the feed and it'd be like the stupidest nothing.
So yeah. So, you know, as a guy,
like, hey, who's the person who did your pictures for your wedding? Like, those are the conversation. Hey, who's your video? Like that.
Right. So, okay. So I think since we're on this friendship thing and now we're transitioning to dating, stay tuned for next week. We're going to talk about how long we feel that you should date before actually marrying somebody. Because, you know, there are cases where people have married
after 2 weeks and they've been married for 36 years.
And on the vice versa.
They were dating for 12 years, got married, then broke up a month later. So So
that's a good topic to talk about. We'll do that next week. Thank you guys for tuning in. We did miss a week because we were all sick. We have a podcast for that. We're going to upload that podcast coming here shortly. We're going to use that for that. But thank you guys for listening. And be sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and join the Facebook group.
Right. Take care.
Bye-bye.